I'm John Vial, as most of you know, Dean of the Honors College. And certainly one of the things that we have put a lot of emphasis on, even before I became Dean and certainly after, has been the opportunity for study abroad. I sort of forgot this morning, I started out with a tie on Congress, and something inside told me, no, I needed something more international. And then when I got here, I realized that today was the day to talk about international study abroad. This is actually a tie that I got, and unfortunately I cannot remember whether it was the Oxford or the Cambridge bookstore, but I got it when my wife and I visited England not too long ago for the 800th anniversary, so 2015, 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. I wanted to go to Germany this year because it is also the 500th anniversary of the Reformation, but it turns out that I followed my heart and went to Costa Rica instead, Costa Rica being a place that I had spent a year of my childhood many long years ago and had never been able to return. So we're fortunate today to have 4 students, each of whom has been in a different program to a different place, and a number of whom have gone at different time lengths. And one of the things that we want to stress is we want you to go abroad if you're able to do it. The university has money for study abroad, and if you're in the Honors College, I sometimes have a little bit extra money for you to do study abroad. So it's definitely something that we want to encourage you to do. In my judgment, the longer the better, but we realize that there's some of you who are not going to be able to go but for 2 weeks or a month or 3 months rather than for a semester or a year. And you know, the consensus seems to be that almost any international travel that you do, particularly with a group or in an internship or in a study program, is beneficial to you. So we have 4 students today, and I think I'm going to introduce each one individually when they make their presentation, because our intention is to put these on the net where students who are interested in study abroad can go find them. So we're going to begin, I understand, with Cammie Dye, a junior, Dyer, I'm sorry. Okay, Cammie Dyer, I'm going to get it right. She is a junior Buchanan Fellow majoring in chemistry and intending to go to law school and medical school. Okay, should I start over? Okay, let's do it. Cammie Dyer, a junior Buchanan Fellow, majoring in chemistry. You wouldn't do chemistry to go to law school. She plans to go to medical school. She studied abroad in Nicaragua with an organization called Global Brigades, and she's going to tell us about her experience.
Yes. Okay, so yes, hello, I'm Cammie. So I decided to go to Nicaragua with Global Brigades twice. I went August in, I think, 2016, August 2015 and May 2016. And so I was at like a organization fair, and I saw some people, and they were like, yeah, we go on these international medical mission trips, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I went to a meeting, and the trip I went on was a medical trip, but the organization itself does business and environmental and finance and all these other kinds of themes for their trips. And we go for 7 to 9 days. I personally have been on 2 9-day trips, and it's 2 days of travel and then 7 days of work. And the trip consists of 3 days working in a clinic. The clinic is in like a rural area, and so the people living in those communities don't have access to like hospitals. So we put a clinic in like a school, and we spend 3 days doing kind of like a nurse's job, and we have doctors in the country that work with us. And so we will take vitals, or we will work in the pharmacy like a pharmacy tech, or we will sit with the doctor and like in the consult with the patients, and then we send them on their way. And then 2 days we spend in their homes, getting personally acquainted with these families. And and we build them latrines. So we build their like shower, and then their toilet, and sometimes septic tanks. And it takes 2 days, and we finish the project. And they focus on specific communities at a time. And once they finish with the medical, and that was the public health portion, and we finish the public health portion, then we move on to other areas of Global Brigades, and the different themes will work in those same areas to holistically develop that area, eventually to where the organization doesn't have to go there anymore. And it's really cool to see. That's why I've been twice, and I'm going again. And you really, Nicaragua isn't the only country that they work in. They work in Ghana and Panama and Honduras. But since I went to Nicaragua twice, I have like a really cool relationship with the people there, because there are people who stay in the country with the organization, and we have really become close with those people and work well with them in the communities. And specifically on my second trip, we worked in the same community for the public health portion as we did on my first trip, and the first trip was at the beginning of it in that community, and my second trip was at the end, so I saw the beginning and the end of that community with the public health, and they were so appreciative, and it was so awesome, and they like sold us coffee and stuff because they started their business portion. Now, to pay for it, we do lots of fundraising through the organization, because it's not a typical like MTSU study abroad. Since it's a student-led organization, then we have to pay for it ourselves. So we focus a lot on fundraising, and we've had many people go on the trip that haven't had to pay anything out of pocket because they've fundraised it all. And it really depends on how much you're willing to work on fundraising to get to go. And it's a lot of fun, and Nicaragua is great.
How much was the total cost?
It's, with the program fee and travel and everything, it's about $2,000. That was for flying and being there. And then for like personal stuff to buy for yourself, like $50 US works for lots of stuff. Everything is really cheap there. So yeah, it's not super expensive at all.
Okay, our next speaker, Tatum England, a junior Buchanan pre-med majoring in psychology with minors in biology, chemistry, and mental health services. She has studied abroad in Italy and Israel, and I'm not sure whether she's going to tell about one or both. Take it away.
Okay, I will actually talk about both. When I was born and raised here in Murfreesboro, I went to high school right down the street. And so when I was making my college decision, I definitely made it if I could study abroad. And MTSU definitely gave me the resources to study abroad, which is why I chose to go here. And so when I came here, I was looking for different programs because I started out nursing. And so I was looking for any programs that would help out in the nursing career, which Cammie's is an awesome one. Should have definitely gone on that. But I actually heard about studying abroad in Israel through Madison Tracy, who was another Buchanan who went here. And she was like, you really need to go. It changed my life and my perspective on things. So I signed up to go. And it was just kind of a last-minute whim decision, but I'm very glad that I made that choice. I never saw myself going just for 2 weeks abroad and with a faculty-led trip, because for college kids, those can be kind of like scary. You have someone like parading you around everywhere. And Dr. Phillips parading you around everywhere, which turned out to be really great. But Italy was we went for 2 weeks and did a very intensive class where you read literature from Italy. You read Dante's Inferno, which has now become my favorite book ever, which that kind of sounds crazy, but it's because we read all of this literature and then we went over to Italy and we got to see the places where this literature took place or where this literature was inspired. And it was a really cool experience. Also, you just got to be in a foreign country and talk to people in Italy who are your age, which was really awesome. So then I came back from that experience, which I'll talk a little bit about later because I want to tie it in with Israel. And I was like, well, that was a great study abroad experience. I never expected that I would get the opportunity to go to Israel, but I took a class with Dr. Peterson, who works here, and she was like, you have to come on this trip. So I signed up once again on a whim and went over there. And that trip was absolutely incredible. You go to Tiberias, which is on the Sea of Galilee, and you stay there for a week and you tour around kind of places that happened in the Bible or historical places, because the region of Tiberias is why Israel is, the geography of Tiberias is why Israel is so desired, because it connected two portions of land. So you get to learn all about that, which is really awesome. And then you got to go to Jerusalem and you got to sit down at the Knesset and talk with foreign leaders, which I didn't know that I love politics a lot. And so I got to bring out that side of me and talk to their foreign minister, which was really cool. And then you also got to see just different places that you read about. You got to float in the Dead Sea. So that was incredible. It's just really awesome that I got these incredible opportunities, once in a lifetime opportunities that were pretty much paid for free through the Honors College and also through the Study Abroad office. Scholarships are out there, which I didn't know about. So I did a lot of research, and the people of the Honors College will definitely hook you up and kind of show you those resources. So I very much plead with you to take those resources. I really wanted to hit on why I study abroad and what I gained from it, because I am pre-med and I went on these 2-week trips that had nothing to do with my major. But I think it's really important to be kind of culturally competent in a way. So I really made an effort when I went abroad to find people and just talk to them about like life and stuff, I guess, because it's very interesting your perspective and how their perspective is totally different on issues. And that just really opened my eyes. For example, this is the story that I like to tell a lot of people. When we were in Israel, a terrorist attack did happen where 2 IDF soldiers were killed that day. And so our group kind of came together and we talked to our guide, who was a colonel in the IDF. And he said, do you guys want to go meet some IDF people? So you really kind of, you get a better understanding of like what we are feeling right now. And so we said, yes, of course. And we went and we handed out like cake and just food and really got to talk to IDF soldiers, which if you don't know, in Israel, everybody around the age of 18 or 20 is required to sign up for their military or do service to their nation, and which is something that we kind of can't comprehend. So we got to talk to these people who are our age, and they're doing something completely different than they're just doing something that I could never imagine having to do. And they just want to be kids like us. Like, they want to go to college. One kid wanted to go and write poetry. Like, it was just a really awesome experience. And to get to have that was something that I don't know. I'm very blessed for having that experience. So, yeah.
Okay. Our next speaker, Anthony Williams, a senior who is in recording industry, concentrating in audio production, and got to go to Belize. Is that right? Okay.
All right, so as he said, my name's Anthony, studying audio production here. One of the main things that made me want to go and do study abroad was really I just wanted to kind of see another country, experience another culture. Obviously, I'm really big into music, and I'm really big into world music in particular. So I thought it'd be cool to go and like learn about, I guess, not subgenre, but a different like type of music, like through the eyes of the people that live there. So that was my main motivation for going. And also, I mean, if I'm going to do study abroad, I'm going to try to get as much credit for it as possible. So I found out, satisfy some honors requirements in addition to like minor requirements for my major. So I decided to go with the study abroad that best fit that. So I went with Dr. Deborah Wagner to Belize with a faculty-led study abroad trip, I guess. But essentially what we were supposed to be doing there is looking at international copyright law and how other countries' intellectual property is regarded in difference to our own. For those of you that may not know, especially like musical artists, which is mainly what we focused on, whenever an artist makes something, they get to copyright their work. They get with performance rights organizations like BMI, ASCAP, whatnot. Like if you go to a bar, you go to a club or something like that, like they're only able to play that music because that club is giving those companies money, which they then fund back into the artists that are part of that. That's how artists typically get their money, either that or like live sound, stuff like that. For Belize, they became independent, I believe it was 82, either 82 or 81, so very young country. My homestay parents are older than the country itself, so it's kind of that idea. Their intellectual property laws are obviously not going to be as strong as ours when they just became a country like only like 30 or so years ago. They have more important things to worry about. So as far as a music scene developing in Belize, they're having a lot of trouble with that. And so it was our job to go and essentially kind of like educate artists on like what rights they have, like how to get fundings, different things like that. Educate them about BSCAP, which is their equivalent to like our performance rights organizations. We worked with BSCAP to put on something called BSCAP Day, where we tried to raise awareness in, I believe it was Belize City, and then also Belmopan, the capital of Belize. Tried to raise awareness about what BSCAP was doing. We got to meet the head of BSCAP at the time, Shine Barrow, I think his last name is pronounced. Any of you who like might have parents who were really into R&B, he was actually a guy who like was signed with Puff Daddy back in the day, like early 2000s. He's from Belize. So we got to do that. In particular, I'm also working here at the radio station on campus. I've been on the executive board for about 2 years now. And so for me, it was a big thing to go down there and see what the radio stations were like and how they dealt with BSCAP, because I know personally, like, we have stuff called like BMI Day at the radio station where once a year we report everything that's played over 72 hours to them, because since we're just a smaller station, we don't have to report on a daily basis, but they still want to know what we're playing so they can give artists the right funding based off of like, what's being played at our station. It's obviously a pretty different story there, like everything's pirated, so there's not really much, there's not really a whole lot set in place to make sure that radio stations are doing what they're supposed to, or really anyone for that matter. Like the second day I was there, I found out I could watch HBO, and like no one actually had HBO. Like they just pirate like a lot of their like television stations and stuff are like just pirated straight from other countries. Like really no one in the country pays for anything when it comes to like the entertainment industry. So obviously an uphill struggle for us, but I want to see how the radio stations handled it, because obviously, they have some sort of love for music. I imagine they'd want to see their artists get paid. And so I was more interested in seeing what that situation was like, I guess you could say. But in addition to that, there was also different things that we got to do, like learning about the culture and the customs of the country, which was something I was big on, obviously, with music. My homestay mom, Glenise, actually, was someone who was a teacher, and then her husband, Raul, was actually a professor. So they got to give me, like, kind of a first-hand experience, like, but also, like, I guess a very structured historical approach, too, to, like, how the country came to be, why things were the way they were. We'd always like watch CNN before dinner every night, and like we'd always talk about politics and stuff. And it was kind of funny to see other people kind of just like dump on Trump that like were not in the U.S., because I hear that all the time here. But it was interesting to see, like, although they had a very similar perspective to what we had as far as like how a lot of like millennials, I guess, would feel. It was just from a different perspective, because a lot of what America does affects them. So it was very interesting to get that kind of perspective. But I remember one weekend they took us to Dangriga, which is the culture capital. We got to meet some people who are pretty much like the forefathers of like the genres coming out of Belize and whatnot. So a lot of different things like that is basically what my trip sort of accounted for in a way. And then also we got to see really cool stuff, like we went to Guatemala one weekend, different things like that.
How much did it cost you to go, and how did you get funded?
That was also an important thing. I wanted to go on the cheapest trip I could because I don't have a lot of money. My trip cost between $4,000 and $5,000, I would say, total. Like even like while we were there, we didn't really have to pay that much because our food was covered. But as far as funding, just saving up and working over winter break, I went to the study abroad office, I believe, a full year before I even went on the trip, just like asking them like, how do I get money? And they'd always give me like different scholarships to go look at, or like different leads, stuff like that. I was awarded a few scholarships through the recording industry and through the Honors College as well, actually. So those were also very helpful. And then GoFundMe, which, yeah.
Great. Why don't we pass the mic to Rebecca Clippard. Rebecca, and I need to thank her for waiting till last. As I explained to her, I sort of had a reason. Most of you have been on trips for 2 weeks or a month or two. Rebecca was actually abroad for almost a year in Japan. She is a Spanish and Japanese double major with an English minor. She's going to tell us about her trip to Japan, but if I recall, I think you're also hoping to go abroad to Spain. Is that right?
This summer.
And one thing that I want to make sure comes out of this, and she may be able to say this, I believe you're planning to apply for the JET program,
Yes.
which is a program for people who have graduated who want to teach in Japan. But one thing to remember about study abroad is if any of you are interested in applying for Fulbrights, which are grants that you get after you graduate for either a year of study and research or a year of teaching abroad, it almost always helps if you've already been abroad. Because and if you've been abroad a semester or a year, it probably helps more because as someone who has served on these committees nationally, I know that one of the questions in the back of my mind all the time is, are they going to get over there and be so homesick that they're going to want to come back? Are they going to be able to stay there? And of course, not all Fulbrights require knowledge of a foreign language, and I don't think we even have Fulbrights in Japan, but in many of these, if you were to go to a Spanish-speaking country, typically they would want you to have at least a working knowledge of the language. So if you've already been abroad to a Spanish-speaking or whatever speaking country it would be that you're applying for, chances are that it's going to help you with your application. So let's hear from Rebecca.
All right. I did study abroad for 10 months in Osaka, Japan at Kansai Gaida University. And what I want to start out by saying is that my trip was very expensive. It was $24,000 to go, and through scholarships, I got all of it paid for. I got a lot of help from the Honors College, the Paul W. Martin, for example, that scholarship. But also, there are a lot of scholarships if you want to go to Japan, and they're all out there, and a couple Google searches will help you figure out the good ones from the bad ones, and I applied for all of them. And I think I only got about 4, but it was enough. And so what I would like to advise you is that you have to apply for all the scholarships, even if you get rejected more than you get accepted. It's the ones that are going to say yes that are going to help you, and if you don't apply, you won't get anything. My 10 months in Japan were amazing. I don't even know where to start. Going on an exchange program is a little bit different than going on a faculty-led program. Once I got to the university, the first thing they did was hand me this big pile of paperwork, and they wanted me to do it all on my own. And I had to go around all of the offices and get a bike registered, and they wanted to know a lot of information about my medical records, and it was the first real independence I had abroad. And you're getting off the plane and you're really tired and you're exhausted, and they just give you all this paperwork and you just want to go home right at that moment, but you can't because the plane won't turn around. And so that first week I spent in the dorm before they introduced me to my host family, and they were the best part of my study abroad experiences. The classes were really good, and I really had an amazing time going around and exploring Japan, but it was my host family that made me feel like a part of the culture. One of the reasons I wanted to go to Japan, of course, was to get immersed in the Japanese language. That's what I talked about a lot, and that's what I put in my scholarship applications, and that's why I went to Kansai Gaida University, because they're the only one that had a homestay program. And it was more than I expected. It was amazing. I had a host mother and a host father. Their children were grown, but I got to go to both their weddings over the year. So it seemed to be a little bit of a whirlwind. They each got married. One got married in the fall, and then one got married in the spring. And so there was all these preparations and all of the wedding talk and the dress. And I got to, ooh over the dresses, and they helped me pick out clothes. So a big part of it was going to the weddings themselves. And I felt happy that they accepted me into that. The foreigner in their household, they could have said, well, do we have to invite her to the wedding? But they really did make me feel like a part of the family. And not only the wedding aspect, they took me out to restaurants, and when I had questions about the culture, and I had a lot of questions about the culture, even with all the research I did, getting there and having people glare at you for no reason that you could figure out was strange. So I'd go home and ask my host mom about it, and she said, Rebecca, you don't eat and walk at the same time. No, you have to stand there. And so things like that I hadn't researched as thoroughly as I should have, they were just a really great help with all of that. And they gave me a lot of love that I really needed, because I did get a little homesick. 10 months is a long time. And I never regretted going to Japan, but I definitely got nostalgic for some things. Their McDonald's is different from our McDonald's, and I would want, I didn't have this problem, but for example, I was the perfect shoe size in Japan and the perfect dress size, but I know that a lot of people had trouble finding winter clothes, and it got a little cold there. So they would get homesick for just some small things like that. But along with my host family, there was the international students, and then there were all of the Japanese friends I made, and together I would talk about America sometimes, and I would ask them about Japan, and we would just have really fun conversations. And one of the most memorable things was I was in Japan during the election, and I had a lot of people that wanted to ask my opinion about things, because especially in my host family, I was kind of the American representative for what was going on. And they wanted to know my opinion, and they wanted me to hear their opinions. And it was really informative to hear other people's opinions about what they thought America should do, and what, in the context of looking at America from an international perspective, what they thought was going on. And so I learned a lot about Japan while studying abroad, but I learned a lot about America too, and a lot about our culture. And I don't think I can articulate that as well, but I definitely feel like I changed from my time abroad. And so if I was gonna stop talking, and if I was gonna end with something, I would say that if you study abroad, and I suggest everybody study abroad, definitely. If you study abroad, you have to say yes to almost everything. I had people ask me to do like fashion shows, and I had people who wanted to take me out to shrines on the weekends, and I had people who wanted me to read their essays, their English essays, and just try to give as much of yourself as you can in the country you're in. So, thank you.
Yes, let's do that. Now, we encourage them to just do 5 to 7 minute presentations, and I think they did a great job of that. We did that purposely so that you can ask questions. You can ask a generic question, but particularly if there's an area of the world that one of these visited, or something that they said specific to a program, it might be better to address it to them. Speak up. We have a mic here that may work. If it doesn't, I'm going to get a signal maybe from back here, and then I'll try to repeat the question. So if you hear me repeating, that's purposeful. So, who has some questions? One in the back. Let's start there.
I'm going to ask Tatum a question that I actually know the answer to. But as Americans, when we're traveling abroad, you always have to be security conscious. And Israel especially is always, you hear so much about violence around that. Did you at any time in that trip feel unsafe, or like you were in danger, or like you regretted the decision to go there, or anything like that?
So we have a safety question, particularly related to Israel.
Yeah. I actually never personally felt unsafe, but when I was there, I have to be like, full disclosure, there was a lot of things going on at the time over there. It was very hectic. Like I mentioned during my presentation, a terrorist attack happened. So there were terrifying things, but one thing that I loved going to Israel is because you are in a group And like I mentioned, we had Ronnie there, Ronnie is a ex-colonel in the IDF. Ronnie knows where to take you. Ronnie, you follow Ronnie wherever Ronnie leads you. And so I personally never felt unsafe in Israel. Honestly, Israel was one of the places, between the two programs, Israel, the people there were the most welcoming. And I've just felt at home there more.
Okay, good question. In the back.
My sister is going on a year-long study abroad to first France and then Germany. So it's kind of a question for everyone, but particularly for you because you went on the longest trip. What do you wish you had as far as kind of like from the home front sort of idea? Like what do you wish, like the support from your family, like care boxes, kind of anything like that? Did you want stuff like that? Did you get stuff like that? What was your just feelings about?
I think you got a visit, didn't you, among other things, while you were there?
I did. I got, for the care boxes, I got one on my birthday and I got one at Christmas, and I sent ones home for holidays. But really, we would FaceTime once a week, and that was sufficient for the feeling that my family supported me and that I was still in contact with them. You know, I'd send them little tidbits about my day. And then they came and visited me in March, and I got to show them my school and all my favorite places, and so that was really amazing.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, sure. Yeah.
Truthfully, there wasn't really too much that I missed from the U.S. when I was in Belize, if I'm being honest. It was really nice being there. I mean, like, I would love to see, like, friends and family, and, like, I have 2 cats that, like, I would have loved to have been there, but honestly, maybe the only thing I could really think of that I missed was, like, specific foods that I liked. There's definitely, like, a lot of rice and beans that you eat, and they, like, love mango, which I'm not a big fan of mango. Like, it's the only fruit I'm not a fan of. So, like, I actually considered even, like, I've wanted to leave the country and, like, just live elsewhere. Just like not box myself in to live in one country for the rest of my life. So I consider even moving there afterwards, which I'm still considering very heavily.
And remind us how long you were there.
I was only there for a month, and still didn't change my mind afterwards. Oh, actually, no, the climate. That's one thing I do miss. It's very humid in Belize. It's like 90 to 100% humidity every day. That's the
like that, or?
No, that's the one thing I don't like.
On my trip, we had like no internet, anything like technology, just because of where we were, you didn't really have cell service so I mean, I didn't miss that, but I missed being able to like contact like my family. And I was only gone for a week, but I couldn't say like, oh, this is what I did today, or tell anybody about my day except for the people that I had spent my whole day with. So that's probably what I miss the most. And similarly, the climate, because Nicaragua, Belize, Central America, it's very hot and humid and lots of new bugs that I have never seen before. So yeah, that's probably what I miss most.
Okay, who's next? Right here.
Hey, this is for Rebecca. It's a 2-tiered question, so for Rebecca and for you, Dr. Vile, maybe. So I also wanted to go to Spain in the summer. But I'm a junior, and I know that, well, for you, I'll start with you first. Am I too late to go in the summer? Does that make sense? I know that they're accepting applications for a lot of summer programs already.
You're not too late, but you should go talk to the
The
study
earlier
abroad
you get on
office.
this, particularly when it comes to lining up scholarship money, the better chance you're going to have.
Okay, and I'm also kind of considered the fall as well, and this is kind of where you come in, Dr. Vile, is I plan on starting my thesis in the spring, and would I have to delay my graduation maybe if I can't take the upper 4,000 level classes or the thesis?
When do you plan to graduate?
May 19.
Well, I mean, if you started your proposal next semester, you could either, you could postpone that to your final semester that you're graduating. Partly depends on your proposal. We've had some theses that have actually been based in part on interviews, if they had IRB approval, or experiences that they had abroad. We've had some artists particularly who've gone and sort of looked at works of art and that sort of thing. So it would depend, but we believe strongly, obviously, in the thesis, but we also believe in study abroad. So if we can accommodate the two together, we'll make every effort to do so. Okay, another question. Yes, in the very back.
For Cammie mostly. So as someone with like food allergies, or well, really anyone, I can't eat soy. And is that like a hard thing to like manage in another country?
On my trip in particular, where we stayed made our foods, and so as soon as we got there, they asked everybody what kind of allergies they have, what they can't eat if they're vegetarian, you know, and they would make specific meals because they brought us our meals when we were away from our from where we were staying, so that was taken care of.
If I can give my own experience, I am allergic. I have intolerances to both milk and gluten. I had more sorbetto in Italy. That was usually my lunch because I was sure it didn't have milk in it, and that would work for me. But and I think you're basically a vegetarian, right? And
I am a vegetarian.
and they worked with you on that. Okay. Well, I didn't want to put you in a box or anything. Okay.
I'm a vegetarian, and my host family, we talked about what I could eat, and it didn't seem to be that big a problem in Japan. So.
Okay. What can I say funny next? Go ahead.
This is actually a question for Tatum, and maybe Cammie too. So like, as a science major, it's pretty difficult to like find study abroad opportunities that overlap with like courses that you'd have to take in your major. And like, I know Cammie, like yours wasn't necessarily like course credit, but Tatum, like, did you do study abroad that was course credit, and how did that kind of affect like what classes you were taking and like your graduation and all of that?
Yeah, I didn't touch on that. Thank you. For Italy, I did do it for course credit, and it went towards the honors college course credit that I needed.
Interdisciplinary seminar, right?
Yes, which is really amazing to get that out of the way with. And then for Israel, which Dr. Peterson allows me to tell people this, like, you can study abroad in Israel without taking the class. So that's an option. That was my experience with it.
And we do have one program, and I believe it's biology, that regularly goes to Chile. And typically it's either one or two students who are able to do that, but that there's a research center there on the coast, and we've had a number of science people go there. So that's one possibility.
And I was actually talking to Miss April Goers, who works here, about this, because we were just talking about science classes with study abroad opportunities, and she's looking more into that, and she was going to research that for me.
There's also an astronomy course in England, I believe in the spring or summer, I'm not sure. And lest I forget, there is, for those of you who are interested in this, on the 15th of this month in the Student Union building, there's a study abroad fair from 10 to 2. So you might want to, you'll see how they sort of patterned it after my tie. But certainly, you know, you'll get a wide variety there of different programs, and you know, I'm sure there will be some that are science related. We're also a member of a consortium, and so if we don't have it directly through a professor on our campus, it may be that a professor at another school is doing something that you could still get credit for. Yes, go ahead.
I would like to recommend going to the study abroad fair, obviously, because you could find out about a program that might fit what you want to do. But I know that when I went last year, I actually not only found the program that I wanted to go on, but even other programs I was interested in. I found out there's a lot of discounts and a lot of scholarships they offer to people that show up to the study abroad fair. So like if you fill out an application to go like on the Keys program, for instance, I think you get like $50 off or something like that if you do it then and there. Like there's stuff like that. So there's definitely more incentives to go to the study abroad fair for sure.
Okay, good. We have some other questions. These have been great. Yes.
This could kind of be a general question, but probably for Tatum. I know Italy was 2 weeks. How long did you say Israel was?
Israel is 15 days.
15 days. Okay, so this could kind of be for like anybody, but do you feel like the 2 weeks, like for some people, like me personally, like it's not feasible to go for a whole semester or a year just because I have other obligations here that I have to take care of. So do you feel like the 2 week program, you still really got that full obviously it's not going to be as much as like a home visit family and stuff like that, but did you still like get the whole education experience with just the 2 weeks as opposed to like going for a semester or a year?
I definitely felt like I had like the full immersion. Well, not full immersion, but like I had enough immersion. I'm kind of like you, like I have a very busy schedule, kind of like we talked about, especially with my major. And so it wasn't feasible to go for a whole semester, probably just for me. But going abroad on these 2 weeks, especially with a faculty person who knows where to take you, and they like have, which I really want to touch on this. The faculty aspect kind of sounds like scary, like I mentioned beforehand. But it was so amazing having them map out like different places that you need to see in Italy. He took us to amazing places and a whole range of places that I would have probably never had the time if I did it by myself to go to. And that's the same with Israel. Like Dr. Peterson has it down to a science, but at the same time, they give you so much freedom, which I very much loved. So both programs, in the morning, you will go to places and be with your group, but then at night in both programs, they very much encourage you to get out and go and explore the country. And that's why I feel like I had a really great immersion experience. I had kind of the best of both worlds.
Okay, someone else. No? Okay, well, it's 1:45. Let's give another round of applause to our speakers.